Good morning, everybody. We'll get started here in a couple minutes. All right, lots of people are joining us, so we'll get started here in just another minute. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to SCORE Akron's workshop today, Starting Your Own Business. My name is Laura. I am going to be here to help Al and help you guys answer questions and read out your questions to him. This is Al Morrison. He's our presenter today. A couple housekeeping items. You will receive from me an email later today that has the recording of this workshop as well as the slides so that you have them as a reference. In that email, there will be a link to request a mentor if you'd like to request one. And what else? Oh, we're going to save questions to the end because we're going to have a large group. So you can type your questions in the chat or the Q&A. And when Al's done presenting, I will help get all those answered for you. So with that, Al, it's all on you now. Ready?
Hey, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. As Laura said, we're going to hold the questions to the end because of the size of the group. The Starting Your Own Business webinar is kind of a smorgasbord of a lot of the things you need to know to start your business. Because we're going to be covering a lot of that smorgasbord this morning, as Laura said, she will send you a link where you could get an advisor. So this will be very general, but to get very specific about your business, what you want to do, your dream, you should really get a SCORE advisor. So with that, the first topic on our agenda is going to be introduction to SCORE. Talk about small businesses. Where do you begin? A business plan, financials, and what do you do next? So SCORE is a national organization. It's a research partner, just a partner. We're not supported by or funded by or part of the SBA, the Small Business Administration. We've been around since 1964, and we have over 10,000 volunteers or business mentors spread over 220 chapters across the country. And what we find out is if you have a guide, you have a mentor, you have a coach, you're going to be more successful. Locally, we serve the 5-county area of Medina, Wayne, Summit, Portage, Mahoning counties. And we've helped, since we started in 1965, we've helped over 50,000 clients in our local area. Either start a business or grow a business, manage a business. We've had people buy a business, sell a business, all kinds of things. Our mission is to help small businesses thrive, and we do that through mentoring and education. And our vision is that every person, every business has the support they need to be successful. Every person, every business, we've been at it for 61 years. We are nowhere near every person, every business, but that's our vision. It's aspirational, and someday we may get there. As I said, we do two things. The first is we do counseling, mentoring. It's important to note this is free and it's confidential, but between you and an advisor. It's face-to-face, Zoom to Zoom, ear to ear. And we're here to answer a question. So it might be one meeting, or we're here to help you throughout the life of your business. And I've had clients for over 12 years now. So it depends on what you need. We're here to serve you. We also do workshops, and we do it online mostly at this point. But you're part of one. This is starting your own business. We do business planning, financial management, analytics, marketing, not-for-profit basics, QuickBooks. And if you go to our website, which is akron.score.org, you can find what we have available. And if you go to score.org, you can see what the national organization has available. Do you want to get a mentor? There's the phone number and our email address. You can also do it through score.org and request a mentor. So remember, these are going to be sent to you, so you don't have to copy that number down or that email. Laura will send you this information this afternoon. Okay. Why is small business important? Because in the US, there are over 75 million small businesses, and we get about 650,000 start every year. 650,000 new businesses every year. That's an impressive number of businesses being started. Small businesses represent 99.8% of all businesses in the US, based on the federal identification number. Half of all goods and services, but most importantly, the bottom line there is that small businesses create over 75% of new jobs. So most all of the new jobs created in the US come from small businesses. That is the future of our economy. It's in the small business, not in the large businesses that hire them and lay them off and hire them and lay them off again and move their plant somewhere else or move their office somewhere else. Small businesses are usually local. They're here to stay. You've heard that small business means risk. You've heard numbers that some of them don't last very long, and that's true. Some do not. And after 5 years, we find that less than half are still around. Why? Well, it's usually the owner may be inexperienced or doesn't get the experience and education they need, and that's why we're here. They may not understand their costs because they underestimated them, but that again, that's why we're here, to help you do that. They run out of cash. They may not understand what cash flow means and how to watch it and keep track of it. And that's what we're here for, is to help you through that. If you think back to the days of the wagon trains that started in the East and went up to California, my research found that every single wagon that made it from the East, that made it to California, had a guide. Everyone had a guide. Now, you may remember from American history that not every wagon train made it to California. Not quite sure what happened, not sure if they had a guide or not. But what we do know is that everyone that did make it to California had a guide. They knew where the water was, where the pass through the mountains were, where the food was, where the water was. They knew all of that because they'd been there and done that. And that's how they help people get there. And that's what we are. We're people that have been there, done that, run businesses, own businesses, started businesses. That's who we are. So we're to help you get to your dream, whatever that may be. On the flip side, though, a small business could be your future. A lot of reasons not to start, but if it's the right person, the right business, people enjoy it. We're talking to one gentleman who, one of his friends owns a chocolate shop. And she says, I can't wait to get up in the morning to go make chocolate. Just because I really love doing it. And if you love doing it, then you really don't work a day in your life. I think that's a quote from Kenny Rogers. You're going to work hard. You put more hours in than you thought, but you're working for you. And if you increase your profits, those go in your pocket, not to somebody else. You're not limited in where you can be. You're not waiting for the guy above you to retire so you can have his job. Your future is all in your hands, and it's exciting. And because I own 4, every day it's a challenge. There's something new happening, something we got to do, some phone call I've got to make or something. So it's an exciting way to build a future. So where do you start? The most important thing is to find a business that's right for you, one that you can get excited about. And you wake up Monday morning, you can't wait to get to work. It's one that meets your goals. What are those goals? Do you want income now? Do you want to retire? you want to pay off college debts? Do you want to put your kids through school? How much time do you want to put in? Is it a hobby? Is it just fun? Is it extra money? Uh, and make sure that you love the job, that it meets whatever your goals are, and you've got some experience in it. I will tell you, I've been eating in restaurants for most of my adult life, but I can't run a restaurant. I don't have that experience in the front of the house, the back of the house, menu planning, cooking. I just don't have it. So it would be ill advised for me to start a restaurant. Uh, but where you've got lots and lots of experience in doing it, that's where you should be. So if you're excited about it, it meets your goals, you've got some experience, that's the ideal mix for the right business for you. You're excited about it, you have a passion, meets your goals, and 3, uses the experience that you've got, your background, whatever that may be. Second thing, after deciding what it is, think about that business. Where are you strong? And where you're not so strong? And play to your strengths. Get help in the areas where you're not so strong. If you're great with the numbers and you want to keep your books, fine. If you're not great with the numbers, maybe you want to have a bookkeeper to help you put the numbers together. If you're great with people, then you should be the person doing the hiring, firing, and managing. If you're not so great with people, well, maybe you want to think differently. If you love knocking on doors, then maybe you should be in the sales part of the business. If you're not, maybe you should find another way. So assess yourself, be honest with yourself. What do I love to do? What am I really good at? And what am I not so good at? And get help in the areas you're not so good at. You now have a business, you know what it is, you know where you're strong. Next step is to do some research. A lot of ways to do research, a lot of good places where you can find that. Libraries are excellent sources of information. You'd be amazed how much information your local library has. And if you go in and ask to speak to the research librarian, that person can help you find what you're looking for, either in the library or online, or some of the resources they have, some of the databases they can tap into. Research is really important because that will be a key indicator on whether you want to start your business or not. So let me tell you 2 stories. First story is an individual came into some money and decided he wanted to build a storage facility. I'm sure you've seen them. They're all over the place. They're a series of garages, big ones, small ones, little ones, tall ones, skinny ones. You key your code in, you go inside, you take the padlock off your garage door, you open it up, store your stuff. Stuff you can't put in your attic or your basement or your garage, you put it in the storage locker. And so he's going to build one of those. And the question is, does the world need another storage facility? And so his first job was to find all the storage facilities that he could around. And so his homework was to get a paper map and put a little red dot on the paper map where he found a storage facility. So he drove around, he asked people, he did an internet search, he looked at online yellow pages, he just did all kinds of research and put little red dots all over the map. And when you looked at the map, it had red dots all over the place, kind of like it had the measles. So the question still is, does the world need another storage facility? So his research homework was to call 5 and ask one simple question: do you have space available? And what we hoped is they'd say, no, we're full, which would mean if you call 5 and they're all full, probably the rest are full too. So that means the world probably needs another storage facility. But that's not what happened. Every one of them said, space? Do we have space? We got big ones, small ones, short ones, tall ones. You come on in. We'll give you the first month for free. We got all kinds of empty space. So what's going to happen if he builds another one? Now we have even more empty space. And how do you compete when there's way too much product or service in the market? On price. And so you end up with a race to the basement on pricing. So he decided that was a bad idea. Another client decided they would like to build a drive-through beverage. I'm sure you've seen them. They're little drive-through alleys. You drive in and you get your sandwich or your 6-pack or your pack of smokes or your lottery ticket or a sandwich or chips or whatever you're buying, and give them your credit card and drive out the other side. And so he wanted to do that. And he what we found was that the county counts cars on the road he was looking for. He was going to put his storage facility, or I'm sorry, his drive-through beverage. Why do they do that? Because then they can plan maintenance. Once they know how many cars are going there on a day, a week, a month, a year, they can say, well, this is what it's going to probably wear out. We're going to have to resurface it or whatever you do to maintain a road. So he found that information, and we did his business plan, and we asked the question, how many cars out of 100, and there were hundreds and hundreds that drove by, but out of any 100 that drive by, how many have to stop for him to break even? And so with the help of his score mentor, he ran the numbers. And if we were in class, in person, I'd have everybody take a guess. But I'll save you the trouble here. The answer is 5. Nope. 4. Nope. 3. Nope. 1. If one car in 100 stopped and bought something, he would break even. So clearly that's a business opportunity. So he did it, built his facility, drive-through beverage. I stopped by a couple of weeks later to see how he was doing after he built it and was up and running. And cars are lined up out of his facility, his drive-through beverage, out onto the street. They're backed up on the street. Looks like he's got a lot of business. So I got out of my car and I walked in, and he and 2 other people are working really hard. He's taking credit cards. The 2 are taking orders and getting them put into people's trunks and the cars, and they're just working as hard as they can. So I said, hey, you making any money? He just smiles. I said, you got a lot of business? He just smiles. I said, you got a minute to talk? He says, nope, I'm too busy making money. And what we found in that particular case, that there was a local industrial park. It was Friday afternoon. It was payday. So everybody's coming in and buying stuff for the weekend. And he did extremely well. His first month, he made more money than the business plan called for. So he was really happy about that. So research can help you decide if you do want to do it, whatever your business may be, or if you don't want to do it. Whether it's a good idea or not such a good idea. And that's the value of research. So your SCORE advisor can help you do that. Next thing you need to worry about is the legal structure. We have a whole webinar on legal structures. But basically, there's 2 forms. There's personal ownership, which looks like a sole proprietorship or general partnership. And there's a corporate ownership, which looks like an LLC, an S Corp, or C Corp. The only 2 things that matter when you're making the decision is legal liability. In other words, what happens if the wheels come off the bus, and how do you pay your taxes? With personal ownership, a sole proprietorship, or a general partnership, if the wheels come off the bus, you or the other owners are personally liable for damages. If it's a corporation, the corporation puts a wall up between you and the outside world, which is very, very difficult to penetrate. It's called the corporate veil. It's very difficult to penetrate, so you're pretty protected from the outside world. The other question is, how do you pay your taxes? Well, a sole proprietorship is by far the easiest way, and the general partnership is a very close second. Corporations, depending on which one you choose, could be more complicated, could have government oversight if it's C Corp. So you want to think about what's right for you, and in talking to an advisor would be advisable. So how might this work? Another story. I had a piano teacher. She started teaching piano in your home. So she'd come to your home and teach your children play the piano on your piano in your living room. And very, very little liability with that. And so she formed a sole proprietorship. Worked great. Taxes were simple. Doesn't get any simpler than that. She was doing pretty well. And she said so many clients that she was teaching decided that she could save a lot of travel time if they came to her house. Her piano, her living room, her slippery steps, her icy driveway. So she now realized there is some liability, so she formed an LLC that protected her. In case mom trips on the sidewalk or on the mat coming into the house, or something happens and the child falls and breaks an arm, she's protected with that LLC. So she formed one, and it again has served her well. The next thing that I suggest you do is, if you're in Ohio, go to ohio.gov/starting. And there's all kinds of information. And I presume the other states that are in our region have those same things too. Uh, it'll tell you if you need a business license, or if you don't, if you need a health inspection. You can register your name, you can get your employer identification number, find out what the legal requirements are. And if you have to pay sales tax, you'll know that and how to register for tax to pay your sales tax. If you're doing a retail business, there's a pretty high probability you will have to pay tax. So you'll need a tax ID number, a sales tax ID number. This is different than an EIN number and a business tax ID number. This is a state taxation ID number. So that'll help you. We always recommend that you have a team of professionals. They're not paid people, but they're people you've got on your phone that you can call with a question. So you certainly should have a CPA or an accountant to help you with taxes, insurance agent, because you're going to need insurance, a banker, so that you can have your business bank account set up. If you're going to have anything to do with computers and you're not that literate, you'll need a special computer tech. And maybe you need some help in marketing or distribution. And clearly you need mentors and advisors to help you to get to California as a metaphor for starting your business. And SCORE is there to help. And remember, we're free and confidential. So as you start your business, what you want to do is keep your startup costs very, very low. And a home-based business is a really good way to do that. If you're just going to have a home office, then that's never a big deal. But if you're going to have customers come or a product delivered to your home, you might want to check with the city zoning department to see what the zoning laws are, if any. Some municipalities have no restrictions. They're silent on the issue. So you can do pretty much whatever you want. But some have some very, very serious restrictions on residential property use. And I had two sons in the swimming pool business, in-ground swimming pool, by the way. And when you have an in-ground swimming pool, you move a lot of dirt. And as a consequence, they had very large pieces of orange equipment sitting in their front yard to dig the holes to put the pools in. And one day the zoning inspector is driving by and knocked on their door and said, "Hey guys, what you got going here?" And they said, "Well, we're in the pool business." He said, "Is that your equipment in the front yard?" And they said, "Yes, sure is." He said, "You know, this is zone residential, and you know you can't have that stuff in your front yard." Uh-oh. So he said, "You need to get it out of there by tonight. And if it's here still tomorrow, there's going to be a very healthy fine for you to pay every single day the stuff stays in your front yard." So they had to scramble. If they'd have checked with the zoning people, they would have had that figured out ahead of time. If you're going to use your car in your business to make money, you're going to have a rider on your auto insurance policy. If you're just driving to and from clients or to and from work, you're fine. If you're delivering flowers so that you're using your car in the actual conduct of your business, delivering flowers, for example, would be one. Your regular car insurance won't cover you. And you want to ask yourself, do you want employees coming into your home or customers coming into your home? And if that's fine, that's okay. You want commercial deliveries pulling up your driveway? And if you have any questions about this, the IRS government publication 587 is a really good source of what is allowed, what's not allowed, and how you can deduct your home office and your home workspace from your income tax. So I'm going to pause, take a breath. I see some questions are already coming in. So business plan. Every business should have a business plan. And we have a whole webinar on business planning 101. Again, check the score.org or the acronscore.org website to see what are the upcoming ones, if any. Everybody should have a business plan. What's a business plan? It's your roadmap. It's your roadmap to success. It should be written, updated, covers all the aspects of an important part of your business, and it's a very important communication tool to investors or bankers or other people that want to know about your business. So it's a very powerful tool to kind of simulate your business on paper. So the business plan actually is a paper simulation, estimation of what your business could be, should be, or might be. And that's very helpful in making a choice. Is this a good business for me? Because sometimes it highlights things that you hadn't expected. And that may be a good thing. It may not be a good thing. So another story, I had four sisters who were just about to sign a lease on a restaurant because they wanted to open a restaurant. And they came to SCORE, and the SCORE advisor said, gee, why are you opening a restaurant? We love to cook. We're four sisters. We get together in the kitchen. We just love cooking. We laugh, we cook, we joke, we have fun. And just it's a great way for us to make some money. So, what's your plan? They said, well, we're going to open it 3 days a week. Now, anybody that's seen a restaurant knows that you probably aren't going to be open 3 days a week and make any money. That's why most of them are open 5, 6, 7 days a week. But we couldn't be sure. So we asked the four sisters to put a very quick back of the envelope business plan together to show number of customers, amount of income, cost of the building, cost of wait staff, cost of the food, cost of point of sale equipment, and so forth and so on, tables and chairs and cups and saucers and all that stuff. And when they looked at the bottom line of that business plan for 3 days a week, it didn't work. That was like, oh, doesn't work. So why not try it for 4 days? So they reran the business plan for 4 days, and still doesn't work. So they reran the business plan for 5 days a week. And you could argue in a good week it makes money, in a bad week it doesn't lose a lot of money, but overall it's a marginal business at 5 days a week. So they reran it for 6 days a week. Aha. The secret sauce, 6 days a week. And it made money. They could quit their full-time jobs and it would be fine. They would be just fine at 6 days a week. And they were sitting in the conference room and across the table from their SCORE advisor. And he tells the story that they looked at one another and they said, 6 days a week in the kitchen from breakfast, lunch, and dinner? No. We like each other, but not that much. And so, although it was a profitable business, they came to realize that to make it work, they might end up on the front page of the Akron Beacon Journal in not a good way. So they decided not to do it. But by doing a business plan, it saved them a lot of agony. If they had signed that 3-year lease and found out they couldn't make any money, that would have been a disaster. So sometimes not starting a business is just as important as starting a business. Why write a business plan? Well, it pinpoints the business needs, identifies your opportunities, it spots problems like we may not get along too well. Maybe the margin's too thin. Maybe it doesn't work. Business plan for the drive-through beverage said it's a great idea. But the bottom line for any business plan, it's to decide to go or no go. And that's the whole purpose. And boy, it's cheaper to do it on paper than open up the business and find out the hard reality of maybe it doesn't work. So, not going to make you an expert in business plans, but what you should do is be sure you understand the business purpose. Again, it's one you're passionate about. What's its purpose? What's it going to do? What does success look like? What do you want your business to be in 2, 3, 5 years, 10 years? And actually start drafting your business plan and then get with your business advisor, business counselor, SCORE mentor sooner rather than later. So I would rather have people come in with a 20% plan that's just started than a 30-page plan where a lot of it's not needed. Some probably shouldn't even be there, and it's not right, and they've got to redo the whole thing. So sooner rather than later, get yourself an advisor on your business plan. There's a sample format if you want one. And now we're going to talk financials. How do you finance your business? Well, I'm going to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I've got them listed there because I want to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you're going to start your business using your personal savings, that's fine. It's your money. You can do with what you want, and you're accountable to nobody else. I would never recommend you taking more than a third of your personal savings and put it into a business. So if you don't have a third to start your business, I would think that's a bad idea. The other side of that, what if you put all your money into the business and now something happens and you need a little more? You've got to buy something, or the truck you've got breaks down, you need tires, or something happens, and now but you're out of money. So you're out of business. Once you're out of money, you're out of business. Some people have said, well, why not a home equity line of credit? Bad idea. Because if the business fails, then not only don't you have a business and a job, you don't have a home either. You're now homeless. Bad idea. Cosigner, great idea. That gets somebody else, a family member possibly, to pledge against the loan. So the bank has now two people to go after. It feels a lot more secure. Loan from family, friends, and the three F's, family, friends, or fools. If you can get them to loan you money, that's great. You've probably all heard the story of Uncle George somewhere, but lent me $500 and I'm a millionaire. Great place to do. Credit card, terrible idea. Credit cards are the most expensive money you can ever borrow. And I have seen credit card interest rates of 25% plus. That's a terrible deal for you. Bank financing, that's probably the least expensive money you're going to ever borrow. So that's a really good idea. But you've got to come up with 20% down payment in the bank. So that's a great idea if you have the money. Some people have said, well, why don't I take it out of my IRA? Again, bad idea. Bad idea. Because when you take money out of your IRA, the first thing that happens is they take a 10% penalty. So now instead of $100, you only get 90. And then you have to pay tax on that 90 because you've probably is going to put you in a much higher tax bracket than you're used to being in. Your taxes go up. So that's going to soak up another 10, 15, 20% of that $90. So you may only get 50 or 60 cents on the dollar when you take it out of your IRA. And even worse, you can't put it back. You can never replace it. You can add to it, but you can never replace that money you withdrew. So again, that's a bad idea. Bank financing is, I said, the least expensive. You walk into the bank, said, I need to borrow some money. They say, you got a business plan? So that's one of the reasons to have a business plan. That's the first thing they'll ask you. They're going to ask you about your personal financial status, your tax returns, your credit score, your debt to equity ratio. So how much debt do you have versus what kind of stuff do you have? Cars and trucks and houses and planes and whatever. They're going to want to know if you have a down payment. Collateral to put your skin in the game. And as I said, it's usually 20%. In some cases, it's more. They will look at typically what industry benchmarks there are for loan repayment and business plan and just make a decision accordingly. So you've got to have a business plan. You have to understand your costs as a business. I was working with a woman who wanted to have a food truck, and she had no idea what the cost of the food was. So without knowing the cost, you know how to price your product. And we have a whole webinar on pricing. But understanding your costs is the number one thing you have to know if you're going to be in business. And whatever that may be, your operating costs, your product costs, salaries and benefits, startup costs, build out, marketing, website, cell phone, whatever those may be. You need to capture all those. And again, your business advisor, whether it's SCORE or otherwise, can help you with that. And as you think about it, running your business, cash is king. If you're out of cash, you're out of business. Cash is the lifeblood that flows through your business. That is what pumps through your business and keeps it alive. Because the number one reason that businesses go out of business is they run out of money. A lot of reasons they run out of money, but When they do, you're out of business. And that can happen early in the life of your business. It can happen late in the life of your business. It can happen when catastrophe falls, like COVID. I think we lost, I don't have a number, but we lost a ton of businesses during COVID because people ran out of money. They just couldn't pay the bills and closed their doors. And so you need to plan for that. And you need to control cash and make sure that you're making a profit. And again, you should have a strong financial backing, financial capability to weather even a bad week or a bad month or a bad COVID. You should have money in the bank to do that. So cash is king. So what's cash? Cash is king. Cash is the amount of money you have in the bank, plus your accounts receivable. In other words, the money people owe you, if they do, and accounts payable, the money you owe other people. So if you bought supplies on your credit card, that's accounts payable. You're going to have to pay those. So although you may have, let's say, $200 in the bank, if you've got $150 in credit card bills, you really only have $50 in cash. And so if I was your advisor and you were starting up your business, we would sit down every month at least and say, how much cash you got? And we'd start to look at it. And if cash is going up, that's good. We're fine. If cash is flat, that's okay. If it's going down, that's bad. So what we want to do then is look, if it's not so good, we want to look a little deeper. Let's look at the cash we got in the bank. If that's going up, that's good. If it's so flat, it's probably okay. If it's going down, and that's one of the reasons your cash is going down because you got less money in the bank, we got to find out what's going on and make sure that we don't run out of cash. So figure out what's going on. Let's look at accounts receivable then, maybe the money that people owe you. If that's going up, that may not be bad if your business is growing. You have more people owing you money. If it's flat, that's okay. If it's going down and your business is not shrinking, that's probably good. So my favorite story is back in 07, 08, we were working with a lumber yard way out in the boonies. And so he was the only game in town, and all the local contractors would come and buy lumber from him to build houses. So all the house building contractors would come. And because they're contractors and they don't get paid till the house sells, they put their lumber, their 2x4s and plywood and so forth on credit. And he carried them. And his business was growing because their business was growing. And so his accounts receivable was growing, which was great until 08 came along. Remember the 08 housing crunch, housing crash? Most every one of those contractors went out of business, owing him money. So he was, when we finally ran all the numbers, he was about $30,000 in debt. That's big trouble. Big trouble. Because even if you sell $30,000 worth of lumber, doesn't pay that back. It's got to be $30,000 in profit. So if you think about the profitability on a piece of wood, it's not very high. So we figured out he had to sell somewhere around $150,000 to $200,000 worth of wood just to get that $30,000 back, not to make any profit, just to pay off that debt. So we have to watch that. Again, we watch that once a month, every month. Accounts payable is money that you owe other people. If that's going up because your business is growing and you're putting more and more supplies on your credit card, that could be okay. But remember, sooner or later, you got to pay it off. That doesn't go on forever. And I just met with one of my clients yesterday, and he is $7,500 into his supplier, and they stopped delivering product to him. They said, until you pay that sum of that $7,500 down, we're not going to ship any more product. So he said, I got 4 customer orders sitting in my desk drawer that I can't fulfill because I can't pay that debt. So my payable is a bad thing. So again, that's something we'd look at all the time. If it's flat, that's probably okay. If it's going down, that's probably a good thing. So those are the things you watch for to make sure your cash flow is strong. So marketing, again, SCORE has a whole webinar on marketing, so we're just going to hit the highlights here in the smorgasbord. To get you started, the thing you want to start with in all marketing is the customer. What is the customer demographic, or at least the marketing people call it the persona? It's your specific customer. Who is that customer? Be specific as possible, and that becomes the basis for your marketing message, and everything you do in marketing speaks to the customer. So you got to know who that customer or that persona is. How might that work? Let's talk about Al's Bike Shop. Al is going to cater to left-handed female bicycle riders, professional women between the ages of 25 and 45, own their own home and college educated. So professionally employed. That is, you say, that's really specific. Well, yes, it is. Because from that persona, you can make some decisions or do some educated guesses on what's important to that rider. 25 to 45, probably riding for sport with a club, probably riding fast, riding long, riding for endurance, riding competitively. Those are all probably possibilities. Very different than maybe a 65-year-old or 75-year-old woman who's riding a bike. She's not riding for sport. She's not riding for endurance. She's riding to keep up with her grandkids. So very same bike, very different message. Right? So for the 25 to 45, the message is you can ride safely, you can ride fast, you can ride long, you can ride comfortably. Now that doesn't mean if a 65-year-old woman comes in and wants to buy a bike, we won't sell her one, but that's not the target market. And the marketing message, I think you would agree, for the 65, 75-year-old woman is very different than the 25 to 45. So you start with that. You always start with the customer. Then you worry about the 4 Ps: product, pricing, promotion, and place. Product talks about the actual good or service and how it fills the end user's wants and needs. Price is how you charge for your product. Promotion is how you advertise it, and place is how you get it to the customer. Traditionally, retail had a store and you came and picked it up in the store. Amazon has changed all that. They've made the point of delivery, your front porch, which changes the whole dynamic of retail marketing. And retail marketing will never be the same because of Amazon. You also maybe want to look at competition. Who's there? How do they compete? But the bottom line is that second last bullet point. What is your advantage? What makes you different? What makes you special in the eyes of the customer? In the eyes of the customer. It may be special to you, but maybe the customer doesn't care. So we have to talk about again, we start with the customer. What's important to that customer? Well, in the case of the left-handed woman, what's important is a bike that's built for a left-handed person. If you've ridden a bike with handbrakes, you know that the right-hand one always controls the rear wheel. The left one's the front wheel. There's a lot of physics involved in why that's the right answer, because most people are right-handed. In a panic stop, what happens? You grab both brakes. You grab both brakes in a panic stop. If you're about to go over the hill or off the road, you grab both brakes as hard as you can. And because your right hand is stronger, you come to it locks up the back brake, and you come to a nice, easy stop with the front brake maybe still rolling. If you're left-handed, the opposite is true. You clamp down on the left hand, which controls the front brake. Guess what happens when that front wheel locks up? Over the top you go. So a left-handed bike rider knows it's important to have that built differently so that the left hand controls the rear wheel. You can't just change the brakes on your own because the cables are different length. So it's not that simple. So they appreciate that advantage, that a right-handed bike shop won't have. Promotion is how you build your brand. And there's a lot of things that go into that. How you promote it, where you promote it, what's that total customer experience, and what do they need? And I think you'll find today that good isn't good enough. It's got to be better than good. And as you have an identity, think about consistency. Consistency is really, really important in terms of that identity of who you are. So everything you do, all your collateral material, website, everything you have, signage needs to be consistent in terms of that identity. There are ways to broaden that. Again, there are webinars on sales and how to make sales. But pricing is a strategic marketing tool. It's a very important part of your startup planning before you go to market. And I will tell you, I've been doing this for many, many years, and I have never seen a startup business overprice their product. That's a pretty bold statement. Never overprice their product. And that's because as small business people, we say, wow, I don't know that I'm worth that much. But fundamental to that decision is you can always lower your price. Always. And the market will love you because they think you got a deal. But raising your price, ooh, that's hard and sometimes costly in terms of customers. And so the market looks like this. At the top, it's the highest price. There are very few customers. At the bottom, with the lowest price, you have the larger potential customers, many more potential customers. And you can do extremely well profit-wise at either end or either place in this pyramid. You just need to decide where you want to be. And then all of your marketing, all of your products, all your promotion plays to that middle market. Let's take the car market, for example. Up at the top, you find your luxury cars, your high-end BMWs, your Mercedes. At the bottom end, you find used cars. And there are more used cars sold in the US than all new cars combined. So it's because they're less price. They're the lowest price. Used car is much cheaper than a new car. So more people buy them. I buy used cars because they're less expensive. So you want to think about where you want to be. So how might that work? Let's take an example. Let's talk about Ann and Bob. Ann and Bob are twins. Ann was born first, so she has a little different business model than Bob. Ann calls her business, because they're both in the lawn care business, by the way, Ann's concierge lawn care service. Ann charges by the season. She cuts your grass regularly. She fertilizes it. She does weed killer on it. She pulls weeds if there are. She edges it. She trims it. She blows the grass off. If you want, she'll collect the grass clippings and cart them away. If you're having a garden party and she knows you tell her when they're coming, she'll come out and cut the grass a day or two before to make it look pristine for you. If you're having a garden party and there's been kind of a drought and you want that grass to look green, she'll come out the day before and bring a water truck. Water that area for your garden party so it looks lush and green. Full service. And she does it all. I mean, it's a tremendous concierge, do whatever you need done to your lawn service. And people pay for it. And you can imagine who those people might be, and you'd probably start in a gated community as potential people who might do that. Her brother Bob has a very different idea of lawn care. He calls his business Bob Cuts. And that's what Bob does. Bob cuts. He doesn't trim, he doesn't weed, he doesn't edge, he doesn't blow the driveway off. He just cuts. Guys show up, lawnmowers come off the truck, grass gets cut, lawnmowers go back on the truck, off they go. If you've got weeds, not his problem. If you've got grass in your driveway, not his problem. He just cuts. And very interestingly enough, they both make about the same amount of money. Ann has very, very fewer customers, where Bob has lots and lots and lots of customers. Very different model. Both work. So the used car guy that's on my corner sells a lot of cars. I mean, he sells a lot of cars on a weekly basis. Compare that to the new car dealer down the street who doesn't sell near as many cars. But you're paying full price for a new car or whatever negotiated price, but it's a lot more than a used car. So everybody can make money. It just depends on where you want to be. And that's a strategic decision. That is not a financial decision. So a lot of things you can think about pricing. You can do market pricing, value-added premium. You can do bundling. You can do all kinds of promotions. A lot of ways you can think about pricing. And I am going to the management. Okay, let's talk about management for a minute. You're going to have employees. You've got to motivate and lead them. You want them to have the passion for your dreams, just like you do. They've got to feel part of the business, and they have to have responsibility and authority to make decisions if you're not there. And they need an attractive job environment. You know, it can't be dirty and dark and grungy. Just nobody wants to work in that kind of an environment. So, what do you do next? Number one, choose the business that's right for you. Go to the checklist for starting a new business. Think about where are your strengths and weaknesses. Choose your business structure, your legal structure. Go to businessohio.gov. Begin working on a business plan, and then sign up for SCOR's business plan workshop. And ultimately, talk to a SCOR advisor. So you've got some help. You've got somebody to ask questions. Somebody that says, "I've been there, done that. I can help you." So at this point, I'm going to stop, open it up for questions, and Laura is going to proctor that for us. I will answer as many questions as I can. If you want to stick around for the Q&A, that's great. If you don't, the session is officially over. So Laura?
All right. Let's see. First off, after completing the research and I find out that the area is saturated with the business I want to start, what is my next step?
So if I understand, the question is, if the area is saturated,
Correct.
as with the storage facility guy, I would suggest you don't do that. Either find another place, another area to go to that isn't saturated, or just find a different business to be in. Because when the market is saturated and the supply exceeds the demand, it's the only way you compete is on price, and that's never good. You don't want to compete on price.
Let's see. Will you please discuss your comment opinion regarding 401k versus IRA?
The IRA is something you can do personally. The 401k is usually done by a business, but they're both retirement plans, and both are subject to that 10% penalty if you withdraw the money early. So that's money, you set it and forget it. You never want to take that money out until after you reach the retirement age and you're in the lower tax bracket.
What is the number one overlooked advantage that startups like mine should leverage from SCOR's network beyond mentorship?
If I understand the question, the one thing that you get is experience from somebody that's been there, done that. And I don't mean, in starting up a business or running a business. I don't mean in the technical part of the business. And what I mean by that is, I've helped a doctor start a private practice. In fact, I've helped 3 start private practices. I don't know anything about doctoring, but they don't know anything about business. So I can help them get their practice up and running, and what they need to do that. So it's the business end of it, not the technical part of whatever that may be.
All right, here's a question. I have a website. I'm on YouTube, plus a business plan, but I don't have revenue yet. That's all they put.
If you're doing serious marketing and you have no revenue, I would suggest your marketing message is wrong. And I have tested that several times because I had a woman that sold apparel, very unique apparel, by the way, t-shirts and hoodies and stuff like that. Very unique stuff for a very unique market. And she'd been in business, I forget, 12 or 13 months, and she had no sales, none, zero. I said, well, how many hits do you have on the website? She said, well, I just looked at that the other day. I've had 180,000 visitors to my website. I said, you have no sales? She said, no, not one. I said, let's look at the website. So we looked at the website. And first of all, when you come to the website, the first thing you do not know is that she sells apparel or merch, as she called it. You can't tell that from your first look at the website. So I couldn't tell that. I said, okay, how do I buy the stuff from you? She said, well, click on the merch button or the merch tab. So I clicked on the merch tab, and up comes a marketing message that does not identify the unique feature of her product. It talks about the quality of the cotton and the quality of the printing, which is not a reason why I would buy a t-shirt. Not this one anyway, because it's very unique. So we had a long talk about her marketing message. She said, oh, okay. Changed her marketing message that evening at 5 o'clock. The next morning, picked up my phone about 8:30, and lo and behold, she had 3 sales overnight. So if you're not making sales, something is amiss with your marketing message. So I would get your score advisor and you to look at it.
Let's see. Considering the Lubmer example, when looking at tracking King Cash, is there a recommended balance between accounts receivable and accounts payable, or is it really context specific?
It's very context specific. Depends on your business. Some businesses have no accounts payable. All right, they don't put anything on a credit card. They either pay cash for it or write a check out of their checking account for it. They have no payables. So that says revenue goes right into either receivables or cash. Receivables, you've got to watch like a hawk, and you got to make sure your terms of payment are reasonable. And if your customers aren't paying you for 30, 60, 90 days, what they're doing is using your money to finance their business. That's a bad idea. So it's very business specific. Some businesses don't provide any level of credit. You pay for it with cash or credit. We don't finance it for you. So just we need to talk about your business.
With bank financing, what is the approval rate for startups with a good business plan?
With a good business plan, it's 100%. I've never had a client turned down for a loan with a business plan we put together. And one of my other colleagues does a lot of that too, and he's never been turned down. I've talked to a lot of people that have gone in with a business plan and get turned down. Now, if they require a 20% down payment for the loan and you don't have 20% down payment, then, well, you probably shouldn't apply in the first place. Laura?
All right. During my market validation, I realized that when my product is needed, I will have barrier to entry, small banks. How do I break through the barriers?
Depends what the barriers are. So I would suggest you get a business advisor and talk through those barriers.
I think she's saying small banks will be the barrier. I'm not. She said, I will have barriers to entry, and in parentheses, small banks.
If small banks are getting in the way of you borrowing money, then I probably think you need to go to a larger bank. But if you don't have the credit rating, you don't have the down payment, and you don't have a decent debt to equity ratio, it's a good chance nobody's going to lend money. And I will tell you, in the 12 years I've been doing this, the banks are getting tougher and tougher in terms of requirements to loan money because they've been burned. And the banking regulations are getting stricter and stricter. And I bought my first house many years ago, and I almost did it on my signature. Today, the paperwork's the half an inch thick that you have to sign before they'll give you the money. It's a very different world today.
Okay, so next question. Did you say SCORE offers assistance with managing taxes? I would like to know how owning a small business can lower my income taxes.
Owning a small business means that some of the expenses you incur in running that small business are tax deductible. For example, your home office would be one thing that if you're just working for a living, it's not deductible. But if you own a small business, your home office would be tax deductible, as one example. And again, a good accountant can help you through that in a heartbeat. Laura?
Okay, this is from Victoria. This is a long 4-part question.
Four-part question. Okay.
How much do you recommend I have in cash and savings for a business? What is the rule of thumb?
It depends on the business, but I think you should have every bit of 6 months operating expenses in the bank to get you through startup or through lean times, or through tariffs or whatever strange things happen. So I would recommend 6 months, but that would really depend on your business.
What is a cheaper alternative to an office? I need space to fulfill inventory and have room for cubicles. Also, should I have a different address other than my home address for the business?
Uh, there's no reason why you can't use your home as an office and your garage as storage to get started. Once you start paying for space month after month, you put yourself at risk. What was the second part?
Oh, do I need to use a different address other than home address for the business?
The answer is you can. It doesn't really matter. The only thing you can't do is use a post office box and apply for a business. It has to be a real live street address. And if you don't want to use that, you want to use some other address, you can go down to the UPS store and get a box at the UPS store. And what you put out there is the address of the UPS store, which is street address, in the box inside. So it would be, 111 Main Street, USA, number 402. 402 is your box. But that might look the same as a building with an apartment in it, apartment number 402. So you can use the UPS store for that if you don't want to use your home address. I use my home address. It's just easier. Then I don't have to go down to the post office and check to see if I got mail. It's a lot easier. But some people want to protect their privacy, and that's fine. And therefore, you can use another address.
And then I'm very new and I have someone interested in being an employee. But is it okay that if they don't get paid for a while, what do I need to do for compliance since they won't get paid? I don't want to get in legal trouble.
If they want to volunteer to help you, that's one thing. If they start talking about being an employee and not getting paid, you run the risk of having to pay them in back wages. Uh, so I would not recommend that. Uh, I just wouldn't recommend that. If they're going to volunteer for you, then it's a volunteer job, and they can volunteer all they want. Make that clear that that's the deal. If they're going to be an employee and it's kind of fuzzy about when that's going to happen, you run a pretty high risk of getting yourself in trouble.
Right. How do you complete research for a company where I plan to use a subscription-based model, i.e. paying monthly or yearly? My only idea is to look at my competitors to consider what the market will bear, and I can price accordingly. Are there costs that are commonly missed, for example, not considered?
Well, the business plan is only as good as the people putting it together. So if they forget to do something, depending on what the business may be, shame on them. Uh, and in business planning, it's never the things you estimated incorrectly; it's the things you didn't estimate at all that you forgot completely about. Those come and really bite you in the back because you never planned for it. So again, if you've got somebody that's experienced in business, can talk you through that and try to make sure that you've got everything considered. In terms of a subscription business, uh, you want to look at what your business is and how is it different from anybody else. If it's the same, then you got to do what the market does. But if you've got a differentiation and there's a reason for that differentiation, then you could have a different subscription rate based on that differentiation.
Is it advisable to not get a company credit card if I can use company debit and have enough cash in my AP bank account?
I'm a big fan of startups having debit cards. And then you've got to look at your cash. It's no different than having the cash in your pocket. If you haven't got it in your pocket, then you can't buy anything. So, right. I've seen more than one company get in trouble because they use their business credit card or their personal credit card uh, to help finance the business. That never ends well. The only way I would entertain that is if you pay 100% of that credit card bill every month. And the first month that you don't is a red flag to me that something's wrong. The first month you make the minimum payment is a red flag. Uh, so I would be really, really careful of that. Debit card's fine. Credit card, dangerous, dangerous, dangerous.
I've spent my 20 years in working for other companies as a technical writer and illustrator. A former employer, I'm sorry, wants to bring me in on a short-term project on a 1099. What are the advantages, disadvantages, and watchouts? Am I better off coming on board as an individual, or should I become a business so I can be hired as a vendor?
No difference between you and the individual as far as the company is concerned. It's still 1099. Uh, the advantage to the employer of 1099, it's a contract job. So when it's over, it's over. They have no employment uh, obligation at all. Uh, just like the guy fixes my roof. He gives me a quote. He fixes the roof. I pay him. I have no obligation after that. That's the good news for the employer. The good news for the 1099 employee is they have a lot more freedom as a contractor to come and go, work when they want. They have to pay their own taxes, but that in their own health care, which means that they should be able to command a higher price than an employee, a higher 1099 consulting fee, contractor fee than an employee would get, because employee gets a workplace, gets benefits, gets vacation, time off, all kinds of things. So you should be able to charge a premium. It's a win-win in my case, especially if it's not full-time work.
All right, I have a business plan using a template from SCORE, and it is long and involved. You mentioned that the business plan is a living document. At what point is my business plan good enough that I can get moving forward with finding funding or applying for funding?
When is good enough good enough? When the bank gives you a loan. Uh, and I think that if you had another pair of eyes look at it and said, yeah, that looks good enough to me, if you've got a friend in banking or your banker, you might take that business plan to your banker and said, hey, is this good enough? And they may say, absolutely, let's go. Or they may say, you got a whole section missing here, my friend. So I would say have somebody other than you that knows business plans to review it for you and with you and make improvements. I will tell you, when I got my last business loan, we were on version 9 of the business plan before we took it to the bank, because we kept refining it and adding to it and taking away from it. And let's not do that. Let's do this instead. Uh, it was a real learning process, and it was kind of fun to see it evolve, because we got to plan it on paper and see what that meant to the bottom line. So that when we went to the bank for money, they said, sure, absolutely.
Looks like we're almost caught up. How do business owners pay themselves? For example, do I register as an employee and pay through payroll, or is it usually another way?
If you're a sole proprietorship, the money goes directly to you. The cash is yours. Checks are written to you personally. And you take whatever you need. I mean, that's your money. It goes in your bank account. If you're an LLC or a corporation, then as an owner, you are an owner. You are not an employee. You cannot be an employee. You're an owner. Owners can't be employees. And therefore, when you pay all the bills and look at how much money's left over, that money belongs to you, the owner. And when you pay yourself, it's called a distribution to the owner. It's an owner's distribution. If you want, you could take it all. I don't recommend that. You should leave money in the business to operate the business with. But in theory, that money that's left over after all the bills are paid is yours. You can take it all out. But that's called a distribution. That's how you pay yourself. In the sole
Uh,
proprietorship, you're already paid because the money goes directly to you.
All right, we're all caught up. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. You will receive an email from me with the PDF of these slides as well as the video recording. Al, thank you for joining us.
Thank you all.
All right, everybody, have a good day. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Get an
Bye-bye.
advisor. Bye.